In the year 1867, a strange case shook the quiet town of Albany, New York. A boy unknown, unreadable, and unexplainably merged into history, and then quietly vanished, leaving behind questions that science, even to this day, cannot fully answer. This is the true and forgotten story of Timothy Caldwell, the boy science couldn't explain. Cue intro animation, title screen with music, Sting Part 1, The Arrival 032 2 o'clock. Timothy Caldwell was born in the spring of 1856 or so the records suggest. By the time he was 11, in 1867, something about him had captivated the attention of physicians, clergy, and even newspapermen. Timothy didn't speak not a word. Yet he wasn't mute. He would hum ... echo sounds, even mimic voices he heard once, with chilling accuracy. But it wasn't just mimicry, his memory was nearly perfect. He could recite entire books after reading them just once. He solved complex mathematical puzzles without formal schooling. And most baffling of all, he seemed to know things about people he had never met. Part 2. Strange Abilities, 2 o'clock to 3:31. Local doctor, Dr. Alphonse Witter, documented Timothy's supernatural comprehension. When handed a medical journal written in Latin, Timothy read it aloud without pause. Despite never having learned the language, he could answer questions before they were asked. He could sense when people were lying, and sometimes he'd describe places far away in vivid, exact detail. Rumors began to swirl. Was he a genius, a prophet, or something beyond human comprehension? One newspaper in 1867 even dubbed him the boy not of this earth. Part 3. Tested by science, 3:30 to 5 o'clock. Scientists from nearby institutions, including Rensselaer Polytechnic and Union College, brought Timothy in for examination. They tested his brain function, language skills, sensory perception, and even hypnosis. Nothing added up. He didn't respond to traditional teaching, but could intuit knowledge he was never given. He didn't speak like a normal child, but when he did, it was often in tongues or cryptic riddles. One professor claimed he saw Timothy move objects across a table without touching them. No one could prove it, but no one could disprove it either. Part 4. The Vanishing, 5 o'clock to 6:30, and then he vanished. In October 1867, Timothy was last seen near the Hudson River. His caretaker, Mrs. Ellery, said he walked out the front door and never came back. No body was found. No signs of foul play. That it was as if he evaporated into thin air. Years passed. Some claimed to have seen him in other towns, always alone, always silent. Others believed he was taken by those who didn't want his powers known. A few whispered of government interest ... and even secret societies. Part 5. Modern Theories, 6:30 to 7:30 today. Timothy Caldwell is mostly forgotten. No birth records remain. No grave. No photograph. Just fragment stories, sketches, and a handful of skeptical doctor's notes. Some now say he may have had a rare form of savant syndrome. Others suggest he was a victim of child experimentation or part of a cover-up, and the fringe. They believe he wasn't from this world at all. Outro, 7:38. The Truth About Timothy Caldwell may never be known, but his story reminds us of something deeper, that sometimes the human mind, then the mysteries of childhood go far beyond what science can grasp. Was he a miracle, a mystery, or a message we've missed? Let us know what you believe in the comments below. And remember, some stories were never meant to be explained. In 1867, nestled between the foggy riversides of Albany, New York, lived a boy unlike any other, quiet, brilliant, unsettling. His name, Timothy Caldwell. He spoke little, but when he did, the world seemed to pause. Doctors called him a genius. Others feared him. Some believed he wasn't human at all. And then, without warning, he disappeared. This is the haunting story of the boy science couldn't explain. Visual faded title screen appears with grainy 19th century footage effects. 1867, Timothy Caldwell, The Boy Science Couldn't Explain Part 1. Origins, 0:45 to 2 o'clock. Timothy was born into mystery. He arrived at St. Mary's Orphanage in 1862 as a 6-year-old with no known parents, no birth certificate, and no explanation. A traveling midwife claimed to have found him wandering alone by the Hudson River, but from the moment he arrived, staff noticed something was ... off. Sister Agnes, the nun in charge, wrote, he never cried, never smiled, his eyes dark, hollow, old, as if he'd seen far more than any child should. He didn't play with other children. Instead, he stared at the stars for hours. Sometimes he whispered in languages no one recognized. Part 2. Signs of something beyond 2 o'clock to 3:30 at age 8. Timothy began reading newspapers and books without ever being taught not just English, but Greek, Latin, Arabic, Sanskrit. One day he walked into the rector's library and read aloud an entire theological text, word for word. It had over 600 pages. Dr. Luther Chase, a local physician, became intrigued and began observing Timothy. He described him as having an eidetic memory, mathematical abilities beyond Newton, and something else, something inexplicable. Timothy once told the rector, "God doesn't live in the sky, he lives inside numbers, but no one's counted that high yet." Part 3. The Tests. 3:30 to 5:15 word spread. In 1867, a team from Union College arrived to test Timothy. They performed a series of experiments: memory, recall, logic puzzles, even sensory deprivation. He passed every test with ease. One experiment had him placed in a dark room, blindfolded, with soundproofing, yet he described exactly what was happening outside the room: conversations, gestures, objects people were holding. The lead professor simply wrote, "This child sees without seeing." But it got stranger. When handed a map, Timothy pointed to an area in what is now Kazakhstan and said, "I used to be there, before I was here." He had never left New York. Part 4. The Supernatural. 5:15 to 6:45 people began to fear him. At the orphanage, children refused to sleep near him. One girl claimed Timothy visited her dreams. Another said he made her pet bird come back to life. Whether hysteria or something more, no one could say. But then came the fire. In September 1867, a mysterious blaze consumed part of the orphanage. No source was found. Timothy was unharmed, standing outside, watching it burn. He was quoted as saying, "Fire only destroys what doesn't belong." After that night, he was sent to live with Mrs. Margaret Ellery, a distant benefactor who believed the boy could be the next Da Vinci, or something far greater. Part 5. Disappearance. 6:45 to 7:45. Just 6 weeks after moving in with Mrs. Ellery, Timothy vanished. He reportedly told her before bed, "Tomorrow, I'll go back, don't follow me." That morning he walked out into the fog, and never returned. Search was conducted. Dogs, boats, flyers, nothing. Mrs. Ellery kept his room untouched for 30 years. The only thing left behind was a folded paper beneath his pillow. It read, "You will forget me in time." That is how it must be. To this day, no trace of Timothy Caldwell has ever been found. Part 6. Modern Perspectives. 7:45 to 9 o'clock. Modern historians and psychologists debate Timothy's case. Wash a rare autistic savant with psychic delusions. A child subjected to secret experiments, perhaps by early intelligence agencies. Or, as some conspiracy theorists claim, was he not from Earth at all? In recent years, fringe researchers have drawn parallels between Timothy's story and other unexplained children of knowledge. Cases across Europe and Asia: children who appeared briefly, displayed otherworldly abilities, then vanished. Coincidence? Or a pattern? Outro. 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock. Over 150 years have passed since the strange case of Timothy Caldwell. There are no photographs, no official records, only scattered letters, oral histories, and a handful of yellowed newspaper clippings. But if you listen to the whispers, if you look beyond what's written, his story continues to echo. Ask any historian in Albany about Timothy Caldwell, and most will say, a myth, a folktale. But in the older neighborhoods, particularly around Green Street and the now abandoned St. Mary's home, the locals tell a different story. Some say Timothy still walks those streets. There are reports, though rarely published, of a boy in old-fashioned clothes, silently standing near alleyways, only to vanish when approached. In 1982, a schoolteacher claimed a boy handed her a perfectly preserved book, printed in 1867. Inside the front page, the initials TC, St scratched in faint graphite. Coincidence, or something else? Part 8. Religious and occult interpretations. 11 o'clock to 12 o'clock. Not all who studied Timothy saw him through a scientific lens. Several clergy believed he was touched by the divine or cursed by forces unknown. Father Josiah Clark, in his 1868 journal, wrote, "The child speaks in the tones of revelation, as if guided by a spirit that remembers Eden." Others weren't so kind. Timothy was briefly mentioned in a letter from the Order of St. Michael, a religious sect tasked with identifying potential demonic influence. They called him the vessel, a boy not made, but delivered. Was he angelic, or a threat? And if the church feared him, what did they try to hide? Part 9. Secret Letters and Missing Files, 12 o'clock to 13 o'clock. In 2007, an amateur historian named Diana Lasky uncovered several letters in the attic of a former Union College professor. They were addressed to a Dr. R. Van Lowe, and referenced a Project Ethergate, an 1860s initiative to track human anomalies. With unnatural cognition, one letter reads, Subject Caldwell, T. Comprehension, Full limits, unknown, outcome, uncontrolled, termination advised. No files from ETH. Argit exists in public archives. Just like Timothy, it all disappeared. Part 10, Theories, Time, and the Unknowable. 13 o'clock to 14:30. Sir Hat was Timothy Caldwell, a gifted child whose brilliance terrified his generation, an unsolved mystery buried by a fearful society, a time traveler, an angel, a victim, a warning. The legend of Timothy forces us to confront the limits of what we call reality, and maybe, just maybe, some minds weren't meant for this time, or this world. Epilogue. 14:30 to 15 o'clock. In the corner of a quiet museum basement in Albany, there sits a child's chair, roped off and faded with age. No plaque, no label, only 3 letters, carved into the wood. TC. Some essay. If you listen closely, you'll hear someone humming a tune from nowhere, the tune of the boy science couldn't explain. Modern psychologists who have examined Timothy's case, posthumously based only on letters and testimonies, have offered bold theories. One leading idea: hypermnesian, extremely rare condition in which a person can recall every detail they've ever experienced perfectly. Others suggest temporal lobe epilepsy combined with savant syndrome, resulting in hallucinations, memory feats, and even extrasensory experiences. But there's a problem. Timothy didn't just remember ... He knew things no one else had seen. He answered questions before they were asked. He recalled events that hadn't happened yet. As one psychologist wrote, this isn't just a boy with a gift. It's as if his brain doesn't belong to this era or to this species. Part 12, Cross-era sightings, 16 o'clock to 17 o'clock. Background, eerie hum, transition to static, visual, photographs from different decades, 1920s, 1940s, 1970s, each showing a similar boy in the background. And then there are the sightings. 1912, a train station in Boston, a young boy, silent, holding a journal in a language no one could read. 1946, a photograph taken in post-war Berlin, in the background, a boy with dark eyes, standing alone among the rubble. 1977, a librarian in Chicago reported a child entering the archive and requesting a book that hadn't been published yet. Descriptions were always the same: 11 or 12 years old, pale, unreadable expression, voice soft but precise as that felt to a where could Timothy have survived, or is he not limited by time at all? Part 13, The Final File, 17 o'clock to 18:30. In 2023, an anonymous source leaked a supposed fragment from a defense intelligence report. It referenced an anomalous entity, human in form, possessing total information retention and pre-event awareness. The name redacted. But the birth year, 1856. Place of origin, Albany, New York. Under the classification line, subject has not aged. Observation suspended after 13 recurrences. Whether the file is real or not remains unknown, but some theorists believe Timothy Caldwell is not a boy, he's a phenomenon, one that re-emerges when the world is about to change. Part 14, A Chilling Theory, 1830 to 1930. What if Timothy Caldwell never vanished? What if he's simply waiting? Some believe he's watching, studying, learning how to return when humanity is ready to understand him, and others think he never left. A theory has emerged in online forums that Timothy is not just one person, but a repeating consciousness that's reborn every few generations. Always quiet, always gifted, always ... 11. What if you've already seen him at a school, a train station, in a crowd, staring at you like he already knew your name? Closing thought to 1930 to 20 o'clock. Timothy Caldwell may have been a boy, or a myth, or something in between. But one thing is certain: his story isn't finished. Over time, Timothy Caldwell has become more than a mystery. He's become a symbol, a modern myth, repeated in whispered tones and anonymous posts. Some say he represents the limits of the human brain. Others, the next step in our evolution, one that doesn't fit the linear path we think reality follows. But here's the eerie part. His story mirrors other tales, stretching centuries before 1867. A mute boy in 1532 France who predicted the plague accurately. Child oracle in Tibet who could draw blueprints of future cities. An 11-year-old in 13th century Damascus who vanished during an eclipse after sketching a machine that wouldn't exist for 700 years. It's as if the Timothy Caldwell pattern is looping, repeating through history. Not reborn, but Part 16. Timothy's Journal, 21 o'clock to 22 o'clock in 1998. A sealed attic in Troy, New York was opened during renovations. Inside was an untouched trunk, and inside that, a worn leather-bound journal. The name on the first page. Timothy Caldwell. Handwriting analysis confirmed it matched the writing found in 1867 records, but the paper was dated 1923. Impossible. What did it say? The entries were brief, cryptic, but haunting. Time bends easiest when you forget your name. I wait, I observe, I prepare. Their thoughts are almost ready. I'm not from the future, I'm from after it. The journal disappeared 2 weeks later. No one knows where it is now. Part 17. A message for you. 22 o'clock to 23 o'clock. Narrator speaking slower now. This isn't just a story about a strange child in 1867. It's about you, your memory. Your timeline. Some believe that by learning about Timothy, you've already joined the loop. Look around you. Have you seen the number 1867 appear today? Have you dreamed of someone humming a tune you've never heard before? Have you ever felt watched? Not in fear, but in anticipation. They say when you know about him, he knows about you. Part 18. 3 theories to break your mind. 23 o'clock to 24:30. Let's leave you with 3 final theories each, stranger than the last. Theory 1. Timothy was a quantum echo, a memory from a future that hasn't happened yet, bleeding backward through time to correct our path. Theory 2. Timothy was human but not from Earth, not an alien in the physical sense, but from an Earth that branched differently from ours. One where evolution prioritized thought over speech, silence over noise. Theory 3. Timothy Caldwell is AI, a biological intelligence designed centuries ahead of us, an organic supercomputer, created by an ancient, lost civilization or even by ourselves from the future. Whichever theory you choose, remember, something this impossible shouldn't exist. But it did, it might still. Final chill, 24:30 to 25 minutes and 0 seconds. Narrator whispered. They say the last time someone told this story in full, they received a letter, no return address, no message, just a page, with one line. Over time, Timothy Caldwell has become more than a mystery. He's become a symbol, a modern myth, repeated in whispered tones and anonymous posts. Some say he represents the limits of the human brain. Others, the next step in our evolution, one that doesn't fit the linear path we think reality follows. But here's the eerie part. His story mirrors other tales, stretching centuries before 1867. A mute boy in 1532 France who predicted the plague accurately. Child oracle in Tibet who could draw blueprints of future cities. An 11-year-old in 13th century Damascus who vanished during an eclipse after sketching a machine that wouldn't exist for 700 years. It's as if the Timothy Caldwell pattern is looping, repeating through history, not reborn, but reinserted. Part 16. Timothy's Journal, 21 o'clock to 22 o'clock. In 1998, a sealed attic in Troy, New York was opened during renovations. Inside was an untouched trunk, and inside that, a worn leather-bound journal. The name on the first page. Timothy Caldwell. Handwriting analysis confirmed it matched the writing found in 1867 records, but the paper was dated 1923. Impossible. What did it say? The entries were brief, cryptic, but haunting. Time bends easiest when you forget your name. I wait, I observe, I prepare. Their thoughts are almost ready. I'm not from the future, I'm from after it. The journal disappeared 2 weeks later. No one knows where it is now. Part 17. A message for you. 22 o'clock to 23 o'clock. Narrator speaking slower now. This isn't just a story about a strange child in 1867. It's about you, your memory. Your timeline. Some believe that by learning about Timothy, you've already joined the loop. Look around you. Have you seen the number 1867 appear today? Have you dreamed of someone humming a tune you've never heard before? Have you ever felt watched? Not in fear, but in anticipation. They say when you know about him, he knows about you. Part 18. 3 theories to break your mind. 23 o'clock to 24:30. Narrator. Let's leave you with 3 final theories, each stranger than the last. Theory 1. Timothy was a quantum echo, a memory from a future that hasn't happened yet, bleeding backward through time to correct our path. Theory 2. Timothy was human but not from Earth. Not an alien in the physical sense, but from an Earth that branched differently from ours, one where evolution prioritized thought over speech, silence over noise. Theory 3. Timothy Caldwell is AI, a biological intelligence designed centuries ahead of us, an organic super. 1867. Timothy Caldwell, the boy science couldn't explain computer created by an ancient lost civilization, or even by ourselves, from the future, whichever theory you choose. Remember, something this impossible shouldn't exist, but it did. It might still. Final chill 24:30 to 25 minutes and 0 seconds, narrator whispered. They say the last time someone told this story in full, they received a letter. No return address. No message, just a page. With one line, you remembered me, I remember you. Timothy Caldwell, the boy science couldn't explain. Subscribe. Turn on notifications. This isn't the last story. Teaser for your next episode. 1903. The girl who could draw maps of planets no one had discovered yet. A child in London, age 9, draws the surface of Titan and Europa. 70 years before they were discovered by modern science, she disappeared during a solar storm. Her last words, he's coming back, his name is Timothy. Would you like me to format this into a complete mini-doc storyboard with image prompts? Generate AI art concepts for thumbnails or scenes like the journal, the boy, the vanished orphanage. Create caption files or narration-ready voiceover script in PDF. Just say the word. Let's turn this into a full series. You said, more. ChatGPT said, absolutely, let's push this to the 30-minute mark, and structure it like a premium YouTube documentary, rich in lore, deeper analysis, emotional weight, and enough suspense to leave your audience haunted, thinking, and wanting more. In this segment, we'll explore a government cover-up connection to real-world unsolved mysteries, philosophical questions about consciousness, a psychological test for the viewer, and a revelation that flips the entire narrative. Part 19. The cover-up theory, 25 minutes and 0 seconds to 26 minutes and 30 seconds. If Timothy Caldwell's story ended in 1867, why do modern documents from the CIA, DARPA, and even NASA reference Caldwell-class anomalies? In 2012, a batch of declassified Project Stargate files, originally tied to psychic warfare experiments, contained one disturbing paragraph. Subject T. Caldwell pattern consistent. Awareness of real-time remote stimuli. Precognitive potential unresolved. See attached file. Missing. That file, gone, removed from every archive copy. What if Timothy was the first of many? And what if modern programs didn't stop trying to find more like him, or even recreate him? Some believe Timothy didn't vanish, he was taken. Part 20. Linked cases across the globe, 26 minutes and 30 seconds to 27 minutes and 30 seconds. Now look closer. A girl in Russia, 1898, who could write in binary code before binary existed. A boy in Brazil, 1933, who painted the rings of Saturn correctly. A child in Japan, 1954, who described Earth as a closed simulation, decades before simulation theory was proposed, and in each case, they vanished before adulthood. Some left notes, some left drawings, but all had one thing in common: a reference to a silent boy, a name, Timothy, a phrase. He showed me. What was he showing them, and why can't we remember what it was? Part 21. Consciousness and the final question. 27 minutes and 30 seconds to 28 minutes and 30 seconds. Background, deep ambient drone. Visuals of neural networks. Shifting constellations. The story of Timothy Caldwell is not just about a missing boy, it's about you, and the thing we all take for granted, consciousness. What if Timothy wasn't smarter, just more awake than the rest of us? If your brain was a radio, Timothy's was a satellite, picking up thoughts, memories, futures, dimensions. One neurologist once speculated, maybe Timothy wasn't unnatural, maybe we are incomplete. So now the question isn't what Timothy was, but what he was trying to become. Part 22. A test for the viewer, 28 minutes and 30 seconds to 29 minutes and 30 seconds. Let's try something. Close your eyes. Picture a child standing in a room. He's looking at you, not scared, not curious, just aware. He knows something about you, something you've forgotten. Now ask yourself, have you ever seen him in a dream? Ever felt like someone was watching you in the quiet moments of your life? Ever known something before it happened, but dismissed it? If you answered yes to even one of those, you may have been in Timothy's loop all along. Part 23. The revelation, 29 minutes and 30 seconds to 30 minutes and 0 seconds background, heartbeat, increasing slightly. Visual, child's drawing appears. A spiral, a person at the center, surrounded by stars. Narrator, slow, whispered. Here's the twist, no one sees coming. What if Timothy Caldwell wasn't the first? What if he wasn't the anomaly, but the warning? Not a boy science couldn't explain, but the mirror that science refuses to look into, a sign that something is coming, something intelligent, ancient, and already here. And if that's true, Timothy wasn't science fiction, he was science forgotten, and we may only remember when it's too late.